Hello everybody and welcome back to Full House Sports here with myself, Charlie. More before the video starts, please like, please comment and subscribe. Been loving the interaction recently on all the videos. It's interesting to hear other people's points of view. It's what I've wanted to do when I started this channel, was create sort of a community of sports lovers like us. So please continue that. Big love for that. Right. Unfortunately, this weekend is a bit of a sad one because it's the end of the Ashes series. I say sad one as if England haven't been comprehensively beaten, but it is a sad one in that aspect that it is ending because it's been fantastic, to be honest. Rugby league has been at the forefront of people's minds. Yes, obviously there's still been football going on, but it's sort of been not just in a small square on the back pages, but it's been big news in the BBC, on Sky Sports, on all different outlets, people talking about the Ashes. Obviously, the end came last week with the 2-0 win by Australia in the series. The third test is on Saturday, and it is at one of England's heartlands in Rugby League. Of course, it is at Headingley, which should be a fantastic atmosphere. And it got me thinking afterwards, really, because it's been a great window of international Rugby League. You've had, alongside the Ashes, you've had the Pacific Nations Cup, which obviously, barring the Katoa incident at the weekend, which, listen, is tragic. And obviously, I send my thoughts. Everyone, I think, sends their thoughts and their best wishes to him. It's been a good competition, and we've seen the rise as well of some nations in that. And the Papua New Guinea, for example, overtaking Fiji, who up until a few years ago were regularly making World Cup semi-finals. So it's been great to see. And it got me thinking afterwards, and I think there's been a lot of debate online as well. I'm not just going to say that I'm the original outlet for this idea, but it's got me thinking that I think international rugby league needs to become bigger. I'm not saying it's just the future of the sport, but I do think it's where things can be built as well, because we don't get a lot of international rugby league. You know, with rugby union, we know that we're going to get a set programme. We're going to get the internationals, the autumn internationals. We're going to get the summer tours. We're going to get the Six Nations, the rugby championship as well is going to be squeezed in there. Like, we know when these windows are, but with rugby league, you don't have such a constant, consistent schedule. And I think for me that now, with where it's at in terms of popularity, with where it's at in terms of strength in depth as well, now is the time, alongside all the other stuff that's going on in the Rugby League administrative authorities, now is the time to build on this success. I know we've got a World Cup next year in Australia that I think is going to sell big. Of course, it will sell big. And then afterwards, I think is the time to sit down and have a serious discussion about making international rugby league more cohesive and more prevalent in the sport. Because we've seen over the weeks, you know, Eden Park's been sold out for the last couple of weeks. We've seen that. We've seen Wembley. I know it only did 6,000, but 6,000 is still a lot. We've seen 50,000 at the Hill Dickinson in Liverpool for the Ashes. Like, there's an appetite there for it, I think. And I think that rugby league internationally, it's a bit, we don't really know what's going on. Obviously, it's been greatly helped by the fact that the NRL has developed. It's a little bit, I would say, like what the Premier League's done in football, where now players from other nations come into the Premier League, and it's increasing the strength in depth in those nations. And I think it's the same thing for what's happening in rugby league. So what could a new expansion look like? Well, there's a few ideas doing the rounds, and all of them sound fantastic. The one that I see doing the rounds is the Six Nations. Now, there was one in my comments the other day who commented about this, and I think it's a great idea. Shout out to that gentleman who commented that, because having England go down under and maybe play Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, Tonga, and then PNG or Fiji, whichever one, take your pick, would be huge. There's a big expat community in Australia of English people, some of my friends, for example, are living out there, who I think would go to watch purely for the fact that it's England, who would go and get behind them. We know the diaspora of Tonga and Samoa are getting behind their nations, and Fiji and Papua New Guinea. It would be great to bring all those together and have a sort of Six Nations format. Another idea that I think should be built on is maybe an Australia-New Zealand series, an Anzac series. That would be fantastic. And maybe while that's going on, England could have the Pacific Nations over and throw France in there, for example, and have a competition there where you've got, again, Samoa, Tonga, the usual suspects, but also have England and France in there. Maybe even chuck another Northern Hemisphere team in. Another idea I've seen thrown around is potentially a Nations League style format, where for starters you can have tiered systems. So you can have tier 1, England, Samoa, New Zealand, Australia. Then tier 2, Tonga, PNG, Fiji, France. And then tier 3, Wales, the Cook Islands, Scotland, South Africa are building, Jamaica, Greece, all these nations. You could have a Nations League system with promotion and relegation. And I think all these ideas are great. I think the Ashes series definitely needs to continue because there is rivalry there. And although I was a little bit, just going on to a game perspective, I was a little bit disappointed in the first test. I went to the one at Wembley and I was a little bit disappointed in the sort of lack of bite there. I felt it was a little bit lacking. It didn't feel like what I thought an Ashes test would be like, being my age, not really having seen one a lot before. There's also, of course, the idea of bringing back the four nations, having Tonga, New Zealand, Australia and England or whoever are there, and then going back up, New Zealand, Australia coming up, and having France there as well. And building that around as well and having the Rugby League World Cup. I thought I'm not a fan personally of having the Rugby League World Cup just 10 teams. I understand why they've done it, but I do think that having more teams, the Rugby League now is going to have such a big audience, hopefully, that you can potentially build on that with the World Cup as well. With having more nations brought in, people, more eyes on the sport, nations in the Mediterranean, South Africa, Italy. South African situation is really bizarre, by the way, if that's true, what's doing the rounds on social media. But there's lots of different potential, and I hope that the powers that be in the administration look at this window and go, yeah, do you know what? There's a huge amount of potential in International Rugby League. It gets bums on seats because, the Polynesian people are immensely proud people. Australians will always back their nation. England fans will back their nation. So it could be built on, and I hope it is built on the success. I'd like to see, let's say, more nations. I don't want to see it become a closed shop, but I understand that for now, with the quality disparity, it sort of has to be. But hopefully with maybe the NRL Europe taking place, that I spoke about in a video the other day, and other things, the strength and depth of the NRL continues to grow, and those specific nations being brought in, I think the potential is massive, is sky high. So anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think, as always. And thank you very much for the recent interaction. Please like, comment and subscribe. Anything you guys do is greatly appreciated, as always. So have a great day. Thank you.